Hey everyone, and welcome to a big fun video about the 2022 Met Gala that's super topical and the YouTube algorithm will not get angry at. Yep, we're going to be talking about celebrities and what they wore. But yeah, this is going to be a video about the Met Gala. But before we get to that, there is one other thing that I think we should probably talk about. It's pretty important. I understand that this is kind of an uncomfy topic, and a lot of you might actually prefer that we talk about the actors and their fancy clothes, but this is something that is a little bit more important than that and deserves to be talked about, so sorry. A few days ago, the 9 haunted mummies that my country lets dictate our rules had a document leak revealing they planned an overturning of the national protection over reproductive rights. Right off the bat, there are links in this video's description for articles, sources, and donation links for you to help support these centers. I would suggest trying to donate to local services instead of the nationwide ones and avoid just jumping on any shady link you see. Try to do adequate research on where your money is actually going to be going. I will be donating a portion of my Patreon's income this month as well as some of this video's revenue towards these sites, and I really hope that you can make a similar donation to yours as well. A lot of people are referring to this as a tricky debate, but honestly, I don't think it could be more cut and dry. I really do personally believe that the people having the pregnancies should be the ones to dictate whether or not they are carried to term. I think it's weird that anyone tries to have a say over that, and that includes judges, politicians, and all of the zealots. Bodily autonomy should always override religious beliefs, especially if it's not a religion you subscribe to, and I don't really understand why the conversation even continues after that. An unwanted pregnancy can ruin the life of someone experiencing it, including the people around them, be that their friends and or family. Life-threatening complications and stillbirths should not be forced to term, and abortion is something that can actively save those people. Understandably, when this news broke, a lot of people online were frustrated, and a lot of women and non-binary people were speaking out about how this law protects them and how it should not be overturned. Some of them came forward with very personal stories about it, which takes a lot of bravery and should not be met with anything other than respect. Unfortunately, but unsurprisingly, posts like these attract a lot of chuds in the replies where they will belittle and harass these people for coming forward with their choice. And instead of showing them empathy or care, they will not treat them as human beings with fully developed brains, which is something these shitheads in the clump of cells they claim to love can't really relate to. Harassing people who are coming forward with their stories about abortion with replies like "don't be a whore" really just show that these people don't really care about protecting life as much as they do shaming sex and intimacy, especially when it comes from someone who's not a man. Religion is tied very tightly to this issue. A lot of people believe that as soon as those pre-baby cells form, it should be considered a life and offered protection under Mr. God. Science would argue that it is not a baby until a conscious is formed much later, but a lot of these people believe that life begins at conception. Personally, I believe that life begins at 18, but my opinions aren't important right now. I do strongly believe that no one should get to dictate your faith for you or tell you what to believe in. And if abortion is not something that aligns with your religion, you don't have to get one. However, it seems very fucking basic to me that the people that want or need an abortion should not have to abide by your religious rules if they don't want to. It makes sense that they should have the bodily autonomy to do whatever they want, and it's not really any of our business. A lot of these fanatics refuse to engage in any critical thinking or nuance. Let's argue that life does start at conception, and someone terminates a baby, that it goes up to heaven. Why wouldn't God just say, "I believe in second chances," and send that baby soul down to a new parent? If every aspect of life is a part of God's plan, as these people constantly preach, I don't understand why an all-knowing God wouldn't have foreseen a termination in this person's plans. Like, wouldn't an omnipotent being see that? They don't want to talk about that. Instead of talking about reincarnation or wanting to look into what God's plan would mean, these people just want to call it baby murder because it's a very catchy name despite it not being based in any fact. Religion jokes aside, I think pregnancy decisions and bodily autonomy are a basic right that every individual should get to choose, and no belief system should get an override to those. A lot of the higher-ups in the Conservative Party really like this talking point because, again, baby murderers is a really good thing to call your opponents if you want to look good. They don't care so much about abortion as much as they care about how it makes them look, and it really is reduced down to a talking point to them, which I think is really fucking gross. If they really cared about the well-being of children, these people would be constantly talking about adoption or the foster care system or basic health care or anything that would help a child once it's born, but they never do, because then they would have to commit to the bit and actually be pro-life, and it really is just a bit to these people. Democratic politicians also have blood on their hands, because it's no secret that Roe v. Wade has been a big target for Republicans since Reagan. What is that, 50 years? And Democrats have done nothing to help solidify that ruling or codify it or protect it at all, because, again, it's a talking point for the elections. These big Democratic politicians rely on social issues to win them elections, and even a day after this leak, they're already hinting at it being on their ballot. If they solved this issue, they would have nothing left to promise us in the future, and we wouldn't vote for them. So it's in their best interest to always talk about the issue but never actually solve it. The Republicans are being fucking evil about this, and the Democrats are being just as scummy. If they wanted to do something about this, they would have earlier. It's disgusting, and hating politicians should be a bipartisan issue. On that note, there is a huge debate about the reaction to this leak being to vote. A lot of politicians and celebrities are advocating to fight back by voting, and even going so far as to blame this on the people who didn't turn out to vote in previous elections. And it is true that voting is an accessible step to take, and for a lot of people, it's the most immediate one, but voting is step one. And for an issue this critical, there needs to be a step 2, 3, and so on. You can't vote and then consider yourself an activist. There needs to be more. It doesn't fucking help anyone to tweet that you should vote and then go put your phone down. Like, we're not going to be heroes for participating in a system that got us here. A lot of terminally online liberals have been spending these past few days blaming leftists for not voting for Hillary Clinton and instead supporting Bernie and other socialist candidates because they believe Hillary would have prevented this entire thing, and that's not the case because of it being Hillary. Even if Hillary did somehow girl boss her way to the presidency, I doubt she would have done anything to protect Roe v. Wade because, again, that's the talking point these Democrats sell their platforms on. It wouldn't have changed anything. Meanwhile, conservatives are acting like this leak is the biggest breach of American security and are threatening investigations in order to look into who this was and punish them and get them and get them and get them and get them. This reaction also seems very counterproductive to me because in a lot of ways it does not matter who this whistleblower is. In fact, I want more leaks. If these ghouls are going to dictate the livelihoods of all Americans, I think we should be able to read their texts. You might have noticed that in this video I've been referring to people who can get pregnant and avoiding the phrase, men should not dictate women's bodies. That's because this issue does affect trans men and non-binary people and people just with uteruses in general. Like, I know inclusivity is not at the forefront of everyone's minds right now, but we shouldn't ignore the fact that this stems from the trans rights debates that conservatives have been fighting all this time. It all falls under the category of bodily autonomy. That is what's under attack right now. And it's because conservative values are set to protect rich white men, and anyone else is just, I don't know. Yeah, that whole thing's fucking weird. Which leads me to my final point about hopelessness, because it's easy to look at all of this news and feel scared, angry, confused, and I think that's why a lot of the reactions online have been so charged. The news breaking obviously took people off guard, and it sent a lot of people into a spiral, which I completely understand. Reproductive rights affect people's entire lives, and I'll never be able to truly empathize with the fear of knowing that could go away, but I have enough humanity to understand that this is a really serious issue, and if people are overreacting, it makes sense to me why. And it's really easy to look at all of this and feel crushed and defeated, but I think it's important to highlight that the reason there is pushback on this at all is because it has come so far from what it used to be. I think now is the time to fight back and hopefully move even further than where we are now. Donating to these services is always helpful. I think they're going to be attacked financially in a lot of ways, and whatever we can give them is probably going to help them a lot more than we'd expect. And this will make some people unhappy, but I do think that for now, we should continue to vote. So stop fucking telling us to. The reason behind that is if we don't vote and the people who want to deny basic rights do, It's a lot easier in our current system for harm to be distributed towards people that don't deserve it. Again, we can't stop there. We can't just vote and then pat ourselves on the back. I completely empathize with the people who are fucking furious at the fact they have to continually vote for Democrats who don't actually help them. I feel you. I'm right there with you. And it is time for that to change. Mobilize and protest and become a part of this crowd that they're so scared of. Be the type of person who your friends and loved ones feel safe coming to about these topics. Look out for each other and don't let this conversation topic die. Like, this is the kind of thing we need to continuously talk about so that these Democrats in power don't get complacent and idle. Reproductive rights and similar issues are not something that we should ever be silent about, and I just won't stand for any fuckhead calling it baby murder or using that inaccurate rhetoric in order to justify misogyny. And please, do not let me be the only voice you listen to on this. You need to seek out and support the people who are affected by this issue and are speaking out, because their voices are the ones that need to be heard. I'm a man. I cannot get pregnant. I can only talk about this from the perspective of an unaffected party. Please do not let me be the only voice you listen to. Okay, YouTube is definitely suspicious of me by now because I have not been saying the words Met Gala enough. So just the final note is to please take care of yourselves. This is scary, but we're going to get through it. All right, back to the regularly scheduled program. And coming in at number 1 for Duncan's top 5 Met Gala looks is Blake Lively, who followed the theme. Billie Eilish looked good. Cara Delevingne wore something better than last year. Any man that wore a suit is boring. You know the hits. It's the Met Gala. We love judging celebrities. But that's all from me. Join in next year where we talk about the Met Gala 2023. I can excuse wealth inequality if it's a serve. See you next year, everybody.